Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Starseed Immersion podcast. Today's guest is Katrina Armstrong, and Katrina is the visionary behind Divine Bridge for Humanity and the creator of SoulBridge technology, a modality designed to help humanity remember and embody their divine blueprint. She serves as a pure conduit of high frequency light, activating soul remembrance through sacred tones, light language, and energy transmissions. As a seer, teacher, and guardian of the higher Akash, Katrina supports visionaries and leaders in reclaiming their truth and stepping boldly in their new earth mission. I am so excited. Thank you so much for being here, Katrina.
Absolutely. It was an instant yes. It was like, yes, yes, yes.
Well, I
Whoa, what a miraculous time. Yes.
Oh, yes, it is such a miraculous time. And I feel such a beautiful connection with you. Like speaking with you is so easy. So I'm very excited to dive in and see what wants to come forward. So to start off, I would love to hear a little bit about your background. Like, how long ago did you, I guess, like, did you step into the spiritual field? Were you always a seer? Did you always know? And how did that unfold?
Yeah, so that's a great question. Since I was young, I always felt everything. I could feel really deeply. I was super empathic, which led to a lot of difficulties actually in my whole life up until 2012, where I went through we can call it a spontaneous spiritual awakening. However, at the age of 12, my grandmother was Pentecostal, so we believed strongly in spirit. And my receiving of the Spirit at the age of 12, it was like I had this guide that remained with me because my life, I call it my curriculum. It was really difficult. It was challenging. My childhood, there was a lot of neglect, there was a lot of abuse, there was just so much pain. And gratefully, from a young age, I knew it had to be a joke. And I often find a lot of times as star seeds, it's like we're brought into these realities that don't make any sense. Like, what is this about? And I'm no exception to that. So by the time I got to 2012, during the spontaneous awakening, I already knew I was going to be called. I didn't know exactly what that meant, but my grandmother was kind of preparing me. She's like, "You're going to be called, and when you are, I asked her, like, well, what do I do?" And she's like, well, you answer. You answer when you're called. And I was like, oh, well, okay. So 2012 comes, my grandmother's already transitioned. I'm now a single mom of three kids in grad school, many jobs. And I'm like, oh, I woke up one day and all of these doors were in front of me. And I didn't have sight up until then. And
Oh,
I asked, like, what is this? Why am I seeing this? Like at that point, I had acquired an addiction to alcohol. And I was like, well, what did I drink? What did I do to myself last night? Why am I seeing things? It was, I didn't know what to think of it. And even though my life had many miracles in it, still this was pretty surprising for me. But all these doors started closing in front of me. And I asked, like, what is this? And the message was really clear audio. My clairaudient came on. You've been in all of these, you've done all of that. Do what you came here for. And in that moment, my whole life, like I started, it was like a review. Like, you're right. You're right. I'm not failing necessarily at life, but I'm not succeeding, and it's exhausting where I'm at. I give. Show me. I'll do what I came here for. And all I had to do was say that. I didn't have to have a near-death experience, although I could feel the change coming. Like my system, I remember like sitting on top of my roof and and I was not a suicidal person, which is really surprising because I endured a lot of painful, violent, like could have died so many times experiences in my life. But I'm sitting on top of this roof and I'm like, oh, I could just jump, but it wouldn't matter. What's coming is coming. So there was just this realization that this is happening. I don't have to jump in order for this to happen. So it was this interesting place where I was at. And I feel a lot of times those that have the near-death experiences in this moment, this is coming through just to share, that they oftentimes, have to go through fully through that experience of letting go of the life path, letting go of the stream, the consciousness that's leaving, right? For me, I didn't have to do that. So it felt like overnight, energy, my higher realm started breathing into my body. So I started transforming quickly and I got to see what was happening in our cells. I got to feel and witness every experience that I had had starting to crystallize into my body and wisdom coming through me. So all of a sudden, I'm talking different. I'm in grad school and I'm writing different. I can no longer write these incredible academic papers. Now I'm writing something really, really philosophical. And I'm just transforming. And eventually it was leave the house, leave the life, let it go. And that's when I said, of course, yes. And I moved out, probably an hour away and kind of grounded myself in, and things were coming through. I was starting to realize what my life curriculum, my life experience was teaching me. Like, oh, this is why I felt that. This is why I had to see that. It started to make so much sense. And then I grew to understand how that was my greatest gift, actually, was the whole life experience because the higher realms was matching it. All of a sudden, the things that I was feeling, the frequencies that I was accessing, because the Christ consciousness was the first thing that came for me and through me, and messages were just flowing through for others. So I just became this walking, beaming light. And through that process, I started to understand myself more and started to accept and receive as well more of the the essence of who I am beyond the human. And I couldn't there was nothing I could do to change it. It was like, whoa, this is truth. This is the greatest truth I've ever felt. And from there, of course, I started to learn about the DNA. So the very first thing I created was called cellular ascension. So helping people ascend from the inside out, because that's what was happening to me. I was moving through this process. So I grew to understand, well, this is what holds us. This is where we struggle at. And from that, my connection with the earth strengthened. I am Native American, so it's like my native genes started to light up, and my understanding of the earth and the trees and the animals all started talking and connecting with me. And then it became the this interesting meditation where I was taken to the higher realms and I was shown all of these different codes. And I was like, well, what am I going to do with it? Because they're being handed to me in this really wasn't even meditation. I was just there. Um, and they were like, well, they have to go down into those bodies. And I'm looking down into the earth and the bodies, they don't look like they could ever hold, what I was holding in my hands. And I'm like, well, how does this happen? And it's like, well, that's what you get to figure out. So my journey has been, how do we bridge our consciousness? How is it that we become light once again? How do we walk here, move here, create here, breathe as our true essence, which, I grew to understand that I was in the higher Akash, touching light structures. And then my work with the earth began. My travel started for 8 years, doing ceremony and working in groups and doing retreats and breathing life into things and working with the gateways and aligning things into the earth and clearing. I felt like a human computer system. I was just consistently coding through my being. Because for me, it wasn't like something I did every now and then. It's something that I was doing every moment. It wasn't something that was, you know, like a meditation that I do in the morning. It was like, hey, this is your life. This is your purpose. So that's how it began for me. And it's evolved. I've taught energy mastery because I learned how to master energy, and emotional mastery because the emotions became like my greatest friends when I started to realize that, whoa, if you speak to them, they will speak back and they will open and they will show themselves beyond what you believed them to be. And I'm like, whoa, you're actually here to support me. You're here to support me with creating and building. It just, my life just became this interesting, wondrous world that somehow I was always someone that could hold a lot. My capacity was really high to be able to do a lot of things. So before I knew it, I was traveling, holding training grounds, holding working in the earth, holding and recoding, looking at where humanity's going. I mean, it just felt like natural. In fact, when I look back, I'm like, what in the like why? What was I, what is going on here? But the level of faith and the level of trust and these are all things right now I'm feeling on the planet, and especially for me, that I'm having to go back to re-anchor myself into. Like here, don't you remember? It was never something you had to push. It was never something we had to, I had to make happen, right? So it's so wondrous that I know every one of us, we have those moments that we can go back to. It's like, hey, if it worked in that moment, it will work in any moment,
Mhm.
right? So it's such a powerful thing. For me, I see it as a resource, to resource myself in the knowing that, hey, you anchored yourself here and here in that moment. So that's just coming through to share because I'm just feeling the potency of where we're at right now on the planet, with all of the shifts and the changes in our consciousness and the parts of our consciousness that want to hold on. It confuses us with like, well, who am I now? And what am I? And wait, no, I knew that I was be doing this mission, but it's not coming through me anymore. What does this mean? There's all of these questions and all of these changes that are present now. And, one of the things that I I myself moved through, I would say the last couple of years, I felt like I was walking in an inverse, just breathing into everything that humanity has been, every part, because I believe humanity lives within all of us, that all of humanity lives in us. So being able to breathe into that and look again, because I know I have the courage. I'm not afraid to look at pain. I'm not afraid to look at addictions. I'm not afraid to look at confusion or corruption or any of these things. I'm not saying I want to hang out there, but I'm saying that if it shows up, if it's showing up in my field, because I know how I hold my own field, if it's showing up, there's a reason for that. So not being afraid to meet it, because oftentimes it's part of our own consciousness coming back to meet us again that have been trapped, that's been lost, that's been confused, that's been waiting for that moment. Like, when do I get to come home? And those are usually the ones we're pushing on the hardest. And sometimes it can be difficult to see, because our mind wants to rationalize it. Like, wait, I've never done these things. Like, why is this showing up? Why is this happening? Why am I seeing this? And oftentimes it may be that your unique signature just so happens to have a code that can speak to that and give it a new direction or give it life beyond what it knows, right? So we're in such an extraordinary time of creation, and we get to decide how we're seeing it. Are we seeing it as chaos energy? Or are we seeing it as creation energy? We get to decide it. And that will greatly impact, what kind of life you're living right now, for sure. That was a very long answer to that question, but that's how it works for me. Like all of a sudden the teaching just flows out of, my stream. So
Yes, and it does. Everything that you shared speaks to my personal experience, and I do feel it is a collective experience as well. Because of the rapid change, how would you say is the best way to approach I guess, approach to journey? And I I can share a little of my background just for those listening to be like, oh, okay, like maybe that's what it's looking like. So, like, for me, I did feel like my old structures crumbled. And with this cold, like old structures crumbling, went my old identity of what I thought I was supposed to be and what I thought I was supposed to, um, what I thought I was supposed to be doing, what I thought it was supposed to look like. And when that crumbled, the true essence, which brought me back to a time like in childhood where I was more me, like I was more innocent and expressive and joyful. And it was like this identity and I feel like it's more of my soul essence of being a creator, right? Like I loved art, I loved creating. Somewhere along the lines, I I let that identity go. I kind of suppressed it because I was told success is supposed to look like X, Y, and Z. And then despite like subconsciously wanting to um, anchor in more freedom by creating a business that would sustain freedom, but I focused on the structures versus what my soul was calling me forth into. And it was like a huge identity crisis, like you had mentioned. It was like, oh my God, I'm having an identity shift of what I created up until this point was not like the true authentic essence of my soul. My true authentic essence is this very creative person. And what does that mean? So, but the transition hasn't been easy. It felt very scary. Like it felt like all of my worth was attached to my old version of self, the
Mm.
hustle and the structures and the logic, and to step into a realm of like pure creation or pure creativity. I'm like, well, I'm not used to feeling worth and valued as a creator, as an artist. What does that even look like? What is that going to, you know? And so I'm curious, like for people moving through a transition so big for them, for themselves, what would you say? How would we approach this experience?
Wow, wow. Thank you for sharing your journey. And it seems to be kind of the template of it, right? It's like, and all the structures have to fall away. And that intrigued me, in my own journey. Like, wow, how quick they were able to fall away, and almost like I'm amazed that there wasn't like some sort of shock or something, but because like you were speaking, who you really are rises. You can't really deny that. I always say, love recognizes love. Like when someone is speaking from true love, when they're speaking through their authentic expression, when that's coming forward, you can't deny that. You feel that. You hear that. You experience that. And in it, one of the greatest things that I got to do, I feel, is help people build internal structures, to show them how to build internal structures. And for me, it began with a simple, I had a woman who showed up in my life when I began almost 13 years ago, and she was extremely galactic. I'm often seen as a galactic being. I've done so much deep, like one of my greatest fears was not being human. After my experience, I was like, oh, am I, what is, you know, what's gonna happen? But when she showed up, I was like, oh, she's definitely galactic, and then her telling me that, hey, do your best to appear human. This is who you are. It is what it is. But one of the tools she gave me was I am source, I am love, I am creator, whatever essence feels most aligned for you, working through this personality for the benefit of mankind, all species on this earth and beyond. This is the truth of who I am. And for me, I had to have that on my door before I walked out. I had to have it on my mirror, because our identity is what holds our patterns in place. It is what holds those emotions doing the thing that they have been doing for you for so long. So, in order to repattern, in order to become friends with those emotions, we begin with the identity. So, and for me, it was being able to anchor myself in truth. I am source working through this personality. And what it began to do, because I recognized that as source, as love, as creator, I could be a mother, I could be a teacher, I could be anything. But if I did it the opposite way, like if I try to be a mother or if I try to be a teacher, not anchored in the truth of who I am, it would call forward all of the structures that once were. So I began to recognize, like, oh, okay, so I'm actually creating this through where I'm placing my attention, where I'm placing my focus. So I'm going to place my focus on the truth of who I am and let these structures burn out. Stop the momentum that they've had for so long. I want to be able to be a mother from a clear place. I want to be able to be a friend from the essence of who I am. I want to be able to be a teacher to where I can show up. Even if I have a lesson plan or something's designed already, which kind of went out the window for me, um, to where I'm showing up 100% here with you. And that's where the magic happened. And that's what I found to be the greatest piece for me is to be anchoring myself there and then anchoring myself into my connection with the earth so that I can be pulling more energy into my body because my body carried all those patterns. My body actually just did a whole series of structural integration and just unraveled even more in my body recently. And I'm like, whoa, okay, okay, whoa, that's incredible. These bodies, they weren't actually designed to hold anything. They were designed to be ever flowing. We weren't designed to be um, stagnant. We were designed to be ever flowing. And these identities, they create stagnation, which is what creates disease, creates difficulty. So, once again, connecting with the earth keeps the energy flowing through the body. So, that's a huge one. So, seeing myself as source, as love, as creator, working through this personality. Thank goodness I have a personality. And part of it was the recognition that I was becoming a soul infused personality. And that feels different. You move differently. You speak differently. People respond to you differently. I I know for me it was a little bit confusing when it started because people were coming to me that maybe knew my old personality.
Mhm.
And I'm like, whoa, I don't know who you are. It took me 2 years to get memories when I went through my transformation. So I'm like, wait, I'm sorry, I can't connect with you here. But, over time, it began to shift and morph because I was anchoring myself. I was choosing myself. I was choosing my essence. So I would say the more that you anchor in to that and give it life, give it expression, you know. And one of the things that I found, it's not that my human or any of the things that I had experienced went away. It is that they began to meet it and they actually got to come home and it enhanced me. It actually gave me more um, spectrum, I would say, or more access to consciousness, which for me, that means more creation. So it gave me more possibilities and more opportunities. So, um, yeah, that's what I would say. If it is falling away, if the structures are falling away, if your identity is no longer there, anchor into what is rising within you. Get curious about it, allow for it to guide you. And I gratefully was able to surrender, actually teach on surrender. And for me, surrender is more of a like whatever I receive, and even things that I'm like super excited about, I'll hand it back. I'm like, here, take this. Refine it. Refine it. Show me what else it can be. Or if it's something that's like a little bit weighing on me or difficult, I hand it too. Show me what I'm not seeing. I surrender into what the truth is here. Because we were not really meant, we're meant to navigate it, the live stream, not control it. It was really meant to move with it, to breathe into it, let it breathe with us. And it's incredible what happens when we find that place. And once you do, you can't not know it. So it makes sense why things fall away. It makes sense what's meeting you. And it is a powerful time for this right now because, what occurred with me, I didn't feel that it was because I was special or any of that. It was really clear to me that this is where humanity's going, that even more people are going to have access to their higher wisdom, their integration of their light. And, holding that line in my hand, it was clear. It was like, oh, and then for me, it was like humanity called me out. Humanity called me out to be showing up right now. And I feel that there's so many star seeds, star-seeded hearts, beings that are being called forward right now. So having that courage to release the structures and know that you're going to be met And I feel that here in this moment, the transmitting that truth, that clarity, that love, that stability through my words right now, because it's there. You're not crazy. You're going to be met over and over again. I was met. I had no idea what I was doing, but I was met.
I love your ability to express the surrender piece. And even I'm curious, like, what happened when I guess was it like a vision or something that you received and then you like handed it back to source and then you asked for more clarity? So, like, I'm curious about what that process looks like because sometimes I would get downloads and I would be like, oh, yeah, like I received that because it must be something I'm meant to act on, right? And perhaps I don't know if anyone out there is feeling the same way that like you receive a message or like some kind of guidance. Is it meant to be act on or?
I love this. When you speak about surrender in that way, one of the things that comes to me when we receive those downloads, we get excited. We're like, "Whoa, this is really cool." And oftentimes the rest of us is still catching up with it. It's like, and we have to wait for all the pieces to click together. So for me, I surrender it back. So for me, it is visual, but what I find is it lands back into the heart. So surrendering it back. So for example, mm, if I got a download to create this, I'm also like tuning into what I'm saying because then it'll start creating itself, right? This download to create this retreat. It's been a while since I've done a public retreat. I do mostly private retreats now. Um, if I got the download to create the retreat and I could feel it and elements of it were already landing, I would first say thank you. Thank you for showing me you. Then I would sometimes even with my hands, I'll just hand it back. Here, take this, refine it, show me more elements of it. And then I let go. I may write it down. Usually I do. I write down what's there. Um, I actually have created a whole creation hub and show people how to do that. So in the etheric, because everything happens in the etheric before it comes into the physical. So um, yeah, so creating the creation hub, we can place it in there, right? And when it comes back down, it can open itself up there and then we can visit it so that when it's ready, we can, you know, commune with it or connect with it so that you're not holding it here. And that's one of the greatest pieces. For me, I'm not holding anything here. In fact, if I do, I know I need to surrender. If anything is weighing on my mind or tugging here, it's like it's not for me. It's really clear for me because my heart, the heart field is so powerful and dynamic. And, it's really the gateway into everything. So it has a brain itself. And you do have a higher mind. And my mind does take things and organize them and creates, but I'm not doing it from here, right? It's happening from here and it connects with it. So yes, I can hand it back to source this way, but there are more advanced levels, of working with the creation hub and building it in the etheric because it always happens in the etheric before it comes into form. However, not many people are building in the etheric. So that's some of the training grounds that came through me. And I was shown how important it was when I was trained in how to build and create in the etheric. It's like, hey, this has to be taken further because this is happening no matter what. We're all building there. So if you're consciously building there, it's powerful. And then when things are coming in, like, oh, of course you're here. It's like you're reaching out and your hands being met. Um, so simple level, basic level is just handing it back to source and letting it come back through. Um, and I think a really big piece of this, oftentimes we want all the answers, right? And I found that I'm not given all the answers until I completely don't need the answers. The only time that they tend to land, because we're in backwards world. Like our reality, what we've been operating in is backwards world. And it really doesn't matter, what dimension people speak in dimensions. I no longer necessarily speak in dimensions because it's unified now, but I understand like if someone shows up, I can see their matrix and I'm like, okay, you're speaking from here. I see where you're at. So then being able to see, so if you're operating, let's say in like a fifth dimension, a lot of people speak about fifth dimension being the new earth and that bandwidth of energy that's there, right? So this bridging from the three to the five, we're still in it. We're still bridging that. And it's not because we're not evolved enough, it is because we have so much creation, so many things that we want to take with us into our new creations. So, oftentimes we can judge ourselves or be like, why am I still looking at that? Or why is that still there? It's like, why don't you become curious? Hey, why am I looking at you again? What is here that I haven't seen before? Right? And if it starts to weigh on you, you can surrender it. Show me again. I'm not getting it. I'm ignorant to whatever you're trying to show me. You know, humility. Humility is really powerful.
It reminds me, I love like funny memes sometimes, and it reminds me of the one that says, "Give me a signier sign. Like, please give me a sign that's more signier than the last one."
So funny. It really is.
Oh my goodness.
And yeah, it's extraordinary what we're given here, and I myself, I feel when it comes to star seeds, those that were planted here, when I began, as I shared with you, I was seen as a galactic, actually galactic mother. I'd have people come up to me and that we're still moving through the archetype of mother. You're like, oh, you're my mother. I know I'm not your mother. It's not what you're feeling the frequencies that are coming through here and, being able to explain that. But ultimately, you know, through my evolution, I've grown to understand that we're really all have starseed hearts. And for some of us, they activate and they bring us online, and we're called to weave in these frequencies from other places. But oftentimes we can get lost in the stories of like, this is what this is, and this is, and I find that can, it's nice sometimes to be able to identify yourself there, and you're becoming so much more than that. And that's what I found through my evolution is, no, actually, you're bringing that here. It's meant to be actualized. It's meant to be created with and explored and brought through. We can honor where it's coming from, but you're not there right now. You're here. You're right here in this stream. So, who are you becoming now that you have access to that is speaking through you? You know, um, the evolution of the human within us is just fascinating to me. But yeah, Starseeds is my third program was called Starseed Landing. And it was all about the ways in which, um, let's see, the integrations that were needed in order for me to trust the Starseed in me, in order for me to really come forward in it. And a lot of shame. I think starseeds carry a lot of shame and a lot of things through their family lines that hold them back. And my journey after being called forward and getting out on my mission and feeling like I got slammed, um, that's what Starseed Landing. That's what came through that was some really deep internal work to bring me to Starseed Landing. It's like, no, we get to be here. In fact, the earth itself, the living libraries within her speak us. They vibrate us. So it's so extraordinary to feel that and to know that. So we can't ignore the human. And I think that's where a lot of starseeds struggle, in that bridging the consciousness level from the human to the star essence, to the galactic, to the celestial, for the angelics here. Um, all of it, that you can be all of it. And in fact, you came here to be all of it. So it's an amazing place to conversate and play with.
What a beautiful message you shared too, because I did experience a lot of what you're sharing, especially with the star seed. It was like this consciousness expansion into this identity, like, oh my goodness, my truth is that I am this multidimensional being. And I know in the space of everyone speaking about the 5D um, and I guess my ego mind was like, oh yes, like I must reach this 5D frequency and finally experience like freedom. And when I got there, I realized something is missing. And I had this like aha moment that um, what about my human life? Like, what about my family and the career that I was building? Because in this unity consciousness, you feel this bliss of like, we are perfect, we're source, and there's no need to prove your worth and anything like that. And I had this I would call it like this motivational collapse because everything that was attached to what sustained that identity for the worth and the validation and the acceptance, it collapsed with it. And but then coming back down, right? It was like, oh, I don't have an identity to attach to anymore. So like, what about my human life? And that kind of started the integration process of like, what does it mean to know this about myself and bring this essence through in form? So what you shared was such a beautiful reflection of that. It's like we have all these beautiful connections to our galactic energies, but how do we bring that through here? And I'd love to hear um, if star seeds are, I mean, we are meant to have this body, like we're meant to live through this body, but do you believe that we all have a very specific mission, or is it something different, right? Like I've been obsessed with this whole mission thing. Like when I started this journey, I knew in my heart, I'm like, I have a purpose. I know I have a purpose. I don't know what it is, but I know I have a purpose.
Um, it's such an interesting thing. Is it Wayne Dyer, um, who I think spoke about like your purpose is to be on purpose, right? And so for me, I didn't have that like I have a purpose. It was like just known. And there was just this such a level of surrender to um what am I becoming? That was my curiosity. What am I becoming? So if we're in becoming, then we're consistently becoming, right? So sometimes our mission can change, right? So that's one of the things that I'm seeing right now is a lot of missions changing, a lot of people that are shifting into new things, or they're showing up differently, or and it's easy to be like, well, who were they really? Like, was that who they were? Or, our mind and like how where we go with that. And what happens is when we integrate our star essence, when we are touching that higher consciousness is touching the body because this body is so powerfully designed. And I remember the awareness that my higher realms was giving me that, hey, if something happens to this body, that you're gonna have to come into another body and clear it all out, right? That's a whole journey that happens. But this particular vessel, I know, has had so much invested in it, I would say, from source, from the earth. So our how it's designed, the DNA within it, all of it is so impeccably um, set up. So in order for us to be able to complete a mission or to show up on purpose or to really magnetize what matches us, because that's really what we're doing, where we're tuning into what is really in resonance with us. So I have a massive work. In fact, everything is centered around resonance because I see resonance as truth, truth as resonance. So for me, like people can come and they may have different ideas and missions and things, but the resonance of us doesn't, like, I can't ignore that. So our resonance and where that takes us, of course, organizing ourselves and being able to piece things together. And, we're in a world where we use money, where we get to create networks of people to be in support of each other because we weren't designed to do this alone. That's why we came together. So being able to find like what really resonates with me. And that may shift as you evolve. Like, wow, actually, I'm no longer feeling that anymore. I felt that there was truth in that, and I've evolved. My resonance has refined. It's refined itself in such a way that now I'm looking at a completely different mission and not having judgment of self, of that. I think that sometimes we can find, I have seen people that jump around in missions, and oftentimes, it has to do with a part of them. I do a lot of soul integration, so personas, parts of us that fracture off, and it's looking for something. So just asking ourselves, like, where is this coming from? Where is this desire really coming from? Oh, it's coming from a need to be validated. How can I validate myself right now so that I can feel and see who I am? So that I can resonate and magnetize what's really matching me. Because I feel we're getting so much more refined in that. And we're being, well, what the earth has shown me through my travel is that we're going to be magnetized to each other on a whole nother level soon. And it's not going to match what we've seen as our mission. And it's not going to, so this is my own truth here. It's going to be such a deeper place. And so noticing what we're attaching to, right? Who we're attaching ourselves, what we are attaching ourselves to in our own being, right? Like who do I have to be? Oh, I have to be someone that's outside of us, right? Like I have to be someone that wears these certain clothes, or I have to be someone that, eats these certain foods, right? So what would happen if those foods were no longer available or those clothes were no longer available? Where would you be? Who would you be? I know for myself, I could let go of anything and step out and know very well that I'm going to be met because my essence is being met. I understand that that's where it's coming from. So for me, it's consistent going back to that from within me. The steps that I am taking, what I'm creating in my life right now, is it in resonance with who I am, who I came here to be? Yes. Okay. Beautiful. Oh, maybe in a week my mission may shift. I don't know. We're in that time right now where things are shifting and morphing. So we have to anchor from a much deeper place. But I do feel that having purpose is a big thing as a human, having a reason for being. I know one of my greatest human things was a need to be needed because I grew up taking care of my siblings. I grew up, tending to a lot of people and feeling responsible for a lot of things. So my human had a need to be needed. So I would find places where I would be needed. So really knowing yourself, like, where am I doing this from? What am I creating this for? Because all those things, they're going to reveal themselves, and then we find ourselves back to like, is this really true for me? Is this who I am? And then knowing that even if it's not, it's okay to start again. It's okay to begin again and create a new way of living or being in any moment. So you have that right, being here. So, yes, I think missions are important, and I feel that we all have a purpose here. But I really feel that our purpose is just our existence. I think everything else is really just extra. But our systems have taken us further away from that, right?
Yeah.
I guess it'd be this way.
I do feel that, like, when I hear your transmission and the words that you're sharing, it does feel like truth. It feels like when you anchor into the truth of who you are, everything that resonates from within that is a creation from truth. So those things are, I would call it like they're more stable because they're not attached to like an external thing. And it's usually the breaking down of the external structures that reveal the truth. Like it makes you come back within, right? Because it was attached to an external reason. But when you anchor into the truth of you, then all that is created is from pure essence, is from pure alignment. And so I do feel that resonance from what you shared.
Yeah. Yeah, alignment, it's such an interesting thing and we know it. We know when things are aligned. It's like, whoa, I feel that. That's aligned.
Mhm.
That feels amazing. And to know that, to know that all of your life, of course we have free will and how we're creating and what we're creating, but we can't deny alignment. It's like, whoa, I feel that spark. And sometimes, when we're going through people call the dark night of the soul. And I don't know about you, but I've died to myself so many times. It's like, and there's consistent death, consistent ascension and descension. And, you know, I think that one of the gifts that I gave you was keys to the soul's evolution. And those keys that are in there are really about like what helped me trust that. Like, oh, and I'm going through like what feels like the death of all deaths, and I don't know if I'm coming out of this or who I am or what life's gonna be like, and I don't even know why I've created all that I've created. And I could take it all the way down, and I think that's part of the experience. So there's nothing wrong with you. That's one of the things I want to say. There's nothing wrong with you, but resilience, the ability to come back, to feel, to know, like, wow, that was interesting. What did I just see in myself? What did I just feel? What's true for me now?
Mhm.
Yeah.
That's
So
true.
it's
Well, as we are coming to a close, I always love to ask all my speakers, like, is there a transmission, an activation, a healing, a meditation that you would like to share with us, like live right now? So as people listen through, they can tune in to it. Thank you so much, Katrina, for sharing that beautiful transmission with us. And I feel my essence like clearing and expanding. You have a beautiful gift to share with the audience members called the Unlock the Keys to Your Soul's Evolution. Would you like to speak a little bit about what that is? Beautiful. And I will have the link below this video for all of you who are tuning in. And would you like to share any of your current offerings or even speak about your retreat that's coming up and your website and where they can connect with you? Thank you so much for sharing your sacred offerings with us and for everyone tuning in. Thank you all for joining. I will have Katrina's links below this video. With that said, sending all of you beautiful, loving energy and blessings, and I will see you in the next episode.